It is the Silky Dogwood moment, and I have never seen it so magnificent. This entire trail, the entire trail is lined with silkies, and we planted none of them. Oh my gosh, so we are going on a walk to visit with the mighty Silky Dogwood, and we are going to appreciate their magnificence. And we are going to soak up every last droplet of sunlight, and we're going to see who is hanging out on these plants. And right now I see that there's a honeybee in here. And look how they just grow. I am completely in love with this plant. Steve is in love with this plant. I see some carpenter bees up top. Right now the trail is a little bit grown up, and so I have to keep ducking under here, which is, it's fun. So you can see some of the open flowers, and then there's still many in bud. So we have a lot of time to appreciate this plant. But also some of the fruits are already forming, and these get the blue fruits, and the birds adore them. They disappear so quick like. And look at that. They said, I'm gonna lean over here, girlfriend. All right, let's duck under here. Here we go. We are doing the whole trail, y'all. And we're gonna talk about all kinds of things. But one of them is this book I read by Dr. Jennifer Grenz, and it is called Medicine Wheel for the Planet. And I just loved it because it challenges a lot of my thinking. But it also makes such sense. I've been reading more and more books like this because we have left out a big part of the story when we talk about restoration. And that is the role that indigenous people had on the lands before colonialism happened. And it's so fascinating to think about because that leaves an opportunity to listen to these people that are still here, still working the land, and that even if some of them don't have land, have deep knowledge. And so one of the main topics that she talked about, which super resonated with me, was land healing versus land restoration. Doesn't that just sit there really nicely with you? It really does with me, because I'm always wondering, well, what are we restoring it to? What are we restoring it to? And that is an argument amongst many people, different ecologists, different land managers, different stewards. We tend to look at 1492, but we know there were people there obviously before then. So what do we restore to? And I have no idea. I really don't, but I do know that the land around me needs healing. And I know that I can do that. And it feels like a really remarkable place to act from and live from and show my love from. See, look at that. There are berries fruiting in here already. I'm going to be so curious how they do with the weather that we've had, because there weren't pollinators out a lot, but maybe they're also self-fertile. We will find out. So this is the area that has the least amount of Silky Dogwood of everywhere, and that's because Steve and I work to keep this open, and we will do that again this winter because we think meadowlands are also pretty important. And I shouldn't even say think, we know. And so let's keep going past these persimmons, and look at this. We've got all these blackberries coming up in here. Got my shadow in here. And I'm just kind of walking here for a moment because there we go, our neighbor's gonna get going. Everybody seems to get active right when I'm out here trying to do a video. And we're already the quirky ones in the neighborhood, and I don't really care, but you never know when they're gonna just kick it down and it's gonna get really loud. But right now I'm not hearing a lot of human noise. I am hearing crickets. Yeah, finally some crickets. What a great joy to hear some insect song. And so now we are going to start getting back into more of the silkies. I hear somebody rustling off to my side. Lately, there has been a deer hanging out here, and so for the first time in our years living here, we have significant deer browse occurring. So that will be something I'm sure we talk about in the future. Here we go. Look at these thickets. So these thickets are places where a lot of birds nest and also forage. The dogwoods are a place that summer azures love to lay their eggs, and they do it towards the tips of the branches. So we're always real careful when we prune, because how goofy would it be to prune off all of the summer azure eggs? And there's starting to be spittle bugs on here. And so land healing. So what our role here has been is to take an area that was mostly mowed grass with a few woodies growing up out here in this area, the thicket lands. And it has been to put diversity back. And we were not needing to do as much as we did. Oh, hi, let's say hi to this plant. Maybe I should rub that one. That's poison ivy. Because so many plants came back. Now that's not going to be true everywhere, I know. But it did here, and all of this, look at this. This is all dogwoods that we did not plant. And so I think we continue to learn that we need to pay attention to what the land is telling us, what are the seeds that are around, what can grow here really well. And then we take on the role of, as Steve likes to say, sculptor. So we live here too. I fully believe we are part of nature, and that we just really sort of lost what that meant and where we came from and how we're to behave in this world. And so we can get back to that. And so as we work on these lands, we shape them in ways that also benefit us. And one of those for us here is to keep this diversity going. Openings, closings, in-betweens, all of it. I do not want all of this to grow up to really thick forest while we are here. Some areas are doing that. Other areas are not, and we won't let them do that. I love the diversity that comes with the mixed habitat, and so does Steve. We both talked about this a lot. We don't love being in really thick, dense forest for our home. And even in the summertime is something that we choose to be in or we choose to not be in. There are absolutely species that must have that sort of environment. And so we support it 100%. But we also know that that's not what we want to have here at this moment. And so we are working on this mixed habitat. And it's so fun because the diversity that comes with mixed habitat is astonishing. Look at this. These are all dogwoods. Now this is also rough leaf dogwood in here. The silkies will flower first and they will fruit first. And then the rough leaves flower later, a little bit later, and then they also fruit later, and they have white fruits versus the blue of the silkies. Now here's a good example. So you can see this pod of rough leaf dogwoods, and it's extending out. And that's cool. We want to keep a mix of ages of these shrubs because different species benefit. But we're not going to have this pod completely take over this area. In here, there are also persimmons and a ton of goldenrod. And that mix benefits many. There's a lot of common yellowthroats that like to nest out here, and they love this mix. I don't know if you're picking up any of the bird song at the moment. There's a chipping sparrow. Oh, there's turkey vultures flying up there. Absolutely one of my most favorite birds. Now here has been an interesting thing because there's these fantastic black walnuts. And who wants to cut those down? Not us. But we also recognize that eventually they're going to take over this whole area. And so you think about that with your sculpting. What do you want those areas to be while you're there? And then you also think long term. Well, they might get big once I'm not here anymore. And so then you also are thinking about who's going to take over this land. And I've made it clear to you all before, we want this protected in some sort of way. And I think we're working some paths forward. I'm not sure yet. We will see. Steve and I are not made of money. And I know most of you are not either. But for us, we also don't have to be made of money. We need enough to survive, of course. But maybe we can continue to minimize what we need to survive so that we can use the money we have to help us survive and then also help us protect these lands. These have been just remarkable in terms of our spirit. And so, of course, I'm talking about the two we have, Morrill County and Highland County. And Morrill County is paid off. Highland County is not yet. We were able to buy this property, 3.5 acres, in, I can't remember if that was 2009, when the downturn happened. And everything was just a mess. And so we were able to buy it for a very, very affordable price and pay it off within a few years. And that's something that I know is more difficult now. And so I have great compassion for everyone that wants to give back to the planet, but somehow now our ownership of land has just turned it into something that is not something most people can do. And so with these properties, though, our spirits have been healed in certain ways, but also frustrated and trepidated in other ways because we have spent all this time and love and energy on helping other lives come back. And then I don't know, we don't know, can they stay here for very long, or is it just while we're here? And that's kind of ridiculous in our opinion. We want them here forever. And so we are willing to not sell these properties, but to donate them eventually and maybe have another nature person live here. I'm gonna cough because it's polleny. The pollen that's so important to so many also makes us cough. Isn't that funny? Well, who cares? I'm not staying inside. I've been inside for, gosh, half a year. Look at this and see how the grape tangles in here. It just creates really remarkable thickets, and then you're always able to cut grape later and not treat it and then just let it come back and create new thickets, but also not kill the plants that they're on. My gosh, they're all gonna open yet. And so with those donations, what we would hope is that, actually what would happen is that non-human life gets to remain. And maybe some human life. It depends. Look at this, like we didn't plant this rush. I'm not even sure that's a rush. There's edges. I got a lot of plants to come out here and work on identifying, which is so exciting because it's a way out of paying attention to everything and then just swirling around in my own head. Do any of you do that? So these lands will be here, and then it might turn into a full-on forest later. So that's my whole point with these trees. Later, if people aren't living here and the land stewardship, the sculpting can't occur as frequently as it does now, it will succession to forest. And then it would change if a tornado came through or really big windstorm and knocked a whole bunch down, and then the openings would happen again, and then this would all start over. Which is pretty neat to think about, isn't it? Isn't this wild what I'm walking through? I can barely see as I'm going, so I hope it's really capturing for you how enchanting this is. It is completely a Zen walk. You can just go through here and not think, especially if you turn off your sculpting stewardship mind and you're just here, present, paying attention to the plants. And so that's what we do frequently. And you can see, here we go, some deer browsing happening. And so with Jennifer Grenz, one thing that Dr. Jennifer Grenz, totally got to give that credit because that is a lot of work. She even talks about legacy areas instead of natural areas, which I find to be a very interesting concept because there were people here before. And a lot of these areas were tended by people. Maybe everywhere wasn't. I have no idea. I don't have a history here in that same way. And so by calling them legacy areas, we're giving credit to people that tended them before. And we're not saying that humans are separate from nature. I know we have acted like it. And I know many of us think the world would be better if humans weren't here. But she points out that in their histories, humans have always been the balancers. Think about that for a moment. Humans were the balancers of different plants, of the composition of the landscape. So obviously then the lives that were there and weren't there. So by keeping certain grasslands open, they were a balancer between the trees moving in and the grasslands that support all the grassland needing species. I love thinking about it that way. And so when Steve and I go through here and we work on the healing, we are acting as a balancer by letting all kinds of different plants grow in different areas. It's completely a mind shift for us, but it allows us this very intimate relationship with the land. And it takes us from just a restorationist, which kind of puts us outside of the natural world, to that healer where we can come back and recreate the balance that once existed. Oh, that feels so good, doesn't it? I mean, it feels amazing to think that maybe this world needs me, and this world needs Steve, and this world needs all of you that are clear on the healing that must happen to balance out all of the communities that live here in the world. And that right now we are seriously out of balance, but we can work on that. And that is what we are doing, all of us, on our properties. And I say it before, I don't like saying our property. I don't like saying I own this property, because we really don't feel that way. This land is the plants' land, the insects' land, just as much as ours. Are you coming back? I see a few small bees in here. Very encouraging. Look at that. So there's a small native bee right here, and they appear to be either getting nectar or pollen from, oh, there's multiple species. This is poison ivy. because yes, poison ivy flowers and poison ivy fruits. And poison ivy fruits are some of the most sought after I've seen. So there's some more honeybees, but I am so encouraged when I'm seeing not honeybees right now, because they have been the ones I've not seen for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so another thing that I think we all really must consider in our balancing act, in our healing act, is helping with the climate that is changing. Climate has always changed. If you read about glaciation, ice ages, oh my gosh, there's no way I couldn't survive in an ice age. But this is changing fast. And I'm seeing it in 14 years on this property. And Steve is seeing it, and it needs to be addressed immediately. And so let's all use our voices in that way. Let's use our actions in that way, because this world is currently subjected to all of our choices. And I think we can use those choices in a way that benefits all. We really just need to stop with the "it's all about me" attitude. And I know that that's where you all are. So thank you for that, because in you and in these legacy areas are where we find great hope and great joy and great purpose. Great purpose. Oh, Dogwoods, thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for letting me be here. Look at this. Those are American plums. I can see the camera isn't focusing on much, at least from what I can see. I hope you could see enough, and that you felt a connection to a land that is feeling healing love. Let's turn around. Oh my gosh, that yellow warbler is here because of what has happened here. How grateful we are. How grateful.